Hello, Mr. Barnes.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, man, first of all, you're going to be part of something that I think is a new trend recently. And I was just saying on the air, we used to do series on, serial killers and things. And now we're doing patriotic and hopefully with History Channel behind it, a relatively accurate portrayal of these bunch of wise guys that were the Sons of Liberty. Are you excited about this?
I'm so excited. And I'm also excited to tell a version of this story which balances those two things, because for the History Channel it has all those intriguing elements, ripped straight from the history books, and it's kind of exciting when you're filming something and you realize, oh, I read about this, in doing my research. This is exactly what happened. But then also it's kind of the contemporary version of these like young, spirited, wild guys who all had completely different approaches to kind of ascertaining the freedom that they all craved, and the independence and the fairness of in terms of their ideologies, and so we're telling that cool, spirited, fun, kind of badass version of it. So it's an exciting 6 hours, even if you're not kind of interested in the details of the history and how accurate it is.
Well, and I think that's very welcome, and I think that we need that, Ben, because too often we set it up with, like the George Washington cut the cherry tree down. We make these people bigger than life because in some ways they are bigger than life, but they were people who were against the system. Now, if you raise a question about the way America does something, people will say, well, you're not patriotic. And I like to point out, hey, wait a minute. These guys were very pro-American, but they were also not afraid to question things. They weren't afraid to have fun, party a little bit. They were not quiet.
And I think one of the most surprising things, it was so important that they questioned the system because nobody else really was. People were just happy with the status quo, and they didn't realize they were being oppressed until it was kind of pointed out to them. Sometimes you need to manipulate the system a little bit to show that it's crooked. And in this, the founding fathers are kind of like the Ocean's 11, and the Brits are the casinos. It was stacked in their favor a little bit, so it needs somebody to tear it down.
From an actor's standpoint, Ben, you're with a bunch of characters here. What's it like when the cameras stop rolling and you're already in that wound up, messing around with each other mood? Is it a riot?
It was a riot. I'd never met any of the other actors that were portraying any of these other, fantastic characters. Each of them a great opportunity for any actor, really. And none of us had ever met before, and then we were all thrown together with a lot of testosterone in Romania, in Bucharest, actually, in Romania, for about 4 months. And so so there was certainly some wild times that ensued after the camera stopped. If you put that many, that much machismo in one place, then there's bound to be some trouble.
Benjamin, speak to the feelings that you have now after doing some of this, coming from London, that the perspective that you had that might have changed while you're shooting this, or any feelings you had.
I think, particularly being a Brit, you're not as aware of any of the details of the lives of these men. When this part of history gets taught in British schools, we kind of gloss over it. We gloss over any part that was any, the dissolution of the empire. This is something we like to talk about, and so I think I wasn't aware of a lot of the lives of these men, and they were all quite extraordinary, all sort of working towards the same goals, but in completely different ways. And I think what I kind of personally take away from the story is the effect that these men kind of had on each other, and eventually as a team have had on the system, and that's where the heart of this story comes from for me.
Let me get to your career just for 1 second, because whenever we have a lot of people, so-called celebrities and politicians and people on the show, and when you say the name, something always pops up. If you say, somebody from Hunger Games or something, oh, Hunger Games. And obviously, you're tied, and especially to a lot of young women, you're going to be Caspian. And I have a 13-year-old daughter, and I kind of say, yeah, Ben Barnes, this guy, he was in Narnia or whatever. Oh, which one was he? He played a guy, Caspian X, and she went, Caspian! And she went crazy about it. What is that like to be tied to something like that?
That's fantastic. You should remember the character's name. Normally I get, the guy with the hair. No, that's about as good as the recognition gets usually. I mean, it was fantastic. I read those books when I was 8 years old. So and I was cast in the movie when I was 25. So to have something that was so sort of magical to you as a child, and to still have those actual genuine and vivid memories of the stories from that kind of very important time in any young boy's life, to have those memories still kind of bouncing around in my brain somewhere by the time I actually got to sort of share those stories with the next generation is amazing, and obviously an amazing opportunity for me professionally in terms of these are stories that are going to be told, and versions of the stories that are going to be seen across the world, and that gives me opportunities to get seen. So I think that's just I was just a very lucky guy, really.
Well, last question for you. I know you get to play Sam Adams, which there's a reason they named a beer after this guy. I mean, very kind of punky and troublemaker, but a leader, a lot of charisma, that kind of thing. What do you hope people get out of this, watching your portrayal and watching Sons of Liberty here in America? I mean, what do you think you're going to leave people with?
Well, hopefully it will encourage those people who are kind of a bit rusty on their history to watch it and think, wow, did that really happen? Did that actually go down like that? And in 85% of the cases, they'll go and look it up and find out it did, and sometimes they'll find out, hang on a minute, this wasn't quite like that. But even for the people who aren't, interested in those details at all and just want, to be taken on a fun ride, I think there's lots of, we're telling the version of history with all the bar fights, the gritty, the grimy, shadowy back rooms of pubs with the bar fights left in, and the kind of sordid nature of what it takes to kind of change minds, spirits, and hearts, and we've left all that in there. So it's quite of a raucous, telling of the story, because this was a bunch of sort of young, rebellious idealists. And that it's never clean. It's never all kind of official, or it's not all just official stamped paperwork and pretty speeches.
Well, we look forward to it, Ben, and I appreciate you coming on in Arizona today. And Sons of Liberty is the show, and thanks once again, Ben.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, Benjamin Barnes.